Ben, you talked about getting on the right track and a green future and things like that. I feel that you're being abstract and vague. And I feel that that's fine for speaking aspirationally or in a utopian sense, but I feel that you, who are a very practical man in many ways, all of a sudden get very wishy-washy when asked with, what are you going to fill up your car with instead? And your example of being driven home in a specialty-made, one-off electric vehicle, and I take your word for it, there was no gas engine in it also, like there is in the Chevy Volt. What's that vehicle? I'm going to guess 50 grand plus a lot of time. I mean, I'm asking you, Ben, is there a real, constructive, real-life alternative to oil out there today? Because if there isn't, I put it to you, Ben, that the choice is not between oil sands and once again, it's between oil sands and OPEC. Can you give me a specific concrete thing that I can do this week to avoid driving my car home that doesn't involve 50 grand? Yeah, it's snowing in Calgary. I'm not sure if a bike would work.
Apparently people have a few answers in their own audience. Hey guys. So, you know, the answer to your question is simple, Ezra. It's not about a new fuel, it's about electricity. And we need to run our automobiles on electricity, we need to run our transit on electricity, we need to get that electricity from clean sources, which means not burning stuff to get that electricity. Are you for nuclear, Ben? I'm not for nuclear, but that's a whole different debate. We can talk about that later. You know, but the answer to your question is really quite simple. And I think you highlighted it when you brought up the cost factor, right? Because you were saying, you know, the thing that's stopping us from getting those cars is the cost. The thing that's stopping us from moving in that direction is usually cost. But the problem is that we cannot actually afford the existing reality. The impacts of this direction that we're heading in will be significantly greater than the investment that we could make today to take us in a different path. The technology exists. It's an economic issue. It's not a technological issue. It's not that we're waiting for dilithium crystals. It's not that we're looking for some mystery fuel. It's that we've got these economic boundaries. And quite frankly, that boundary is coming from politics, and it's coming from people with a lot of power, money, and influence, who, quite frankly, I think you are helping with your arguments. So at the end of the day, if you want me to tell you what needs to be done, we need political change, we need policy change, we need to change the way that we build our cities, we need to build smarter cities that you can get around in on transit, that are walkable, that are mixed use. All of that can be done through public policy, which drastically reduces the need for an automobile. And the exact same things can be done in every country in the world. In fact, they have an advantage because they haven't made the same mistakes that we have. So the question is, do we push them through trade sanctions and international treaties and the IMF and the WTO to adopt the same mistaken technology that we have, or do we allow them to skip over the mistakes we've made? Kind of like how they've skipped over the landline in China and gone straight to the cell phone. Can we do the same thing with where energy comes from and how people move around? The answer is simply yes. The only question is, will we do it? Do we have the political will? Will we actually force our political leaders to do the right thing? And if you want me to tell you what to do, continue your life as normal right now and try to do the best you can and try to push for the change that's necessary in the future. So this question is sort of tied to the answer to your last one. You know, there's been a number of reports that have been written about the potential for green jobs. One that I like a lot was co-written by Greenpeace and the European Renewable Energy Council. And I bring it up because I know how much you hate Greenpeace, and I'm just trying to fight it. So according to this report, 4.5 million jobs could be created by 2015 in renewable energy and other green jobs. 8 million by 2020, 12 million by 2030. We have 32 times this potential supply of renewable energy to the current need, just based on our current technology. Do you believe that that is not true? Do you believe that those people are lying, or do you simply not want to push investment in that direction?
Well, I've never heard the phrase push investment before. This city, Howe Street, is full of greedy little bastards. And they'll do anything for a buck. And if it's true, what you said, that there is so much money in those green jobs, how come that greedy street ain't all over like wet on rice, Ben? It's because, I mean, since when do governments pick winners? What was the last one? Building cucumber greenhouses across this country? That was going to be our salvation? Ben, if there's this great economic opportunity, do you really think that people are waiting for you, the community organizer, to tell those sharks on Howe Street where to make their millions? A few years ago, a guy created the carbon exchange in Chicago. It's the only carbon commodity exchange in North America. Al Gore said we were going to make trillions off of it. You know how much carbon traded for last week on
5
carbon?
cents.
5 cents.
I read your blog, Ezra.
Thank you very much. No one's buying it. They're shutting down the carbon exchange after 10 years. Ben, unless someone is artificially subsidizing it, no one wants to buy pixie dust. No one puts up windmills, Ben, without a subsidy. I've been to these Chinese wind farms in Xinjiang. Half of them aren't spinning. You know why? The money was there to build them. No one wants the super expensive power. They're building 3 coal-powered fire plants in China a week. Those windmills are just to take suckered money from the West.
You know what the government can do? They can tell you what not to do.
Now, one final question from Ezra.
Ben, I got a question for you.
Yeah. But yeah.
Using the Obama administration's Argonne National Labs GREET analysis, well-to-wheels, the full life cycle of the oil.
Yeah.
Those calculations, and you can dispute them if you like, but I've seen no credible disputation of them, show that Canadian oil sands oil, per barrel, has a lower carbon footprint than oil from California and oil from Venezuela, and it's about the same as oil from Nigeria and Kirkuk, Iraq, because they flare all their natural gas. So even if you're a global warming warrior, which I think you are, shouldn't we replace high carbon fuel from California and Venezuela with lower carbon fuel from oil sands?
Ezra, that question is completely insane, but I appreciate you asking.
I mean, shouldn't we make a small improvement, Ben?
Well, first of all, I will dispute the numbers, and if you haven't found the dispute of those numbers, you haven't been looking hard enough, because as soon as I heard you say it, I went and looked, and it was easy to find.
Can you tell me?
Well, sure. For one thing, the wheels to well number is based on the United States, right? So it's a lot less footprint. Yeah, sure. But we're not talking about the actual CO2 footprint of various different oil sources. We're talking about less CO2 because you don't need tankers to bring it in from somewhere else. Now, that being said, there's also a piece of that which is missing, which is that the carbon calculation is done after it's brought over here, when it's mixed with diluent and other things. So you're not looking at just straight bitumen, you're looking at a mixture of various different things within that calculation. That being said, even if it was true, which it isn't, but even if it was true, it still would be completely ridiculous to say that we should be ramping up the oil sands to replace some other dirty fuel, because all you're really saying is, look at the really, really dirty fuel, and then all this other really dirty fuel, you know, which is the better of the really, really dirty fuel? And the end of the, you know, the answer is simply, all of this stuff is the cough syrup I was talking about. You know, the reason why all that fuel is so dirty is because it's all that's left. You know, whether it's the peak oil question that's going to push us to do something about this, or it's climate change, you know, one way or the other, we're going to have to make this transition. All I'm suggesting is that the government, if it was being smart, if it was trying to help us be ahead of the curve, would actually regulate out of existence these dirty fuel sources that do harm. We would be pushing for a trade agenda with China and India and all these other countries that help push technology that was actually sustainable, that wouldn't run out, that wouldn't, you know, be so detrimental to the health of people around the world. And quite frankly, I think this is going to happen whether we do it as Canadians or not, simply because Europeans and other places around the world, they're making these changes. And they're going to force us through trade agreements or through international negotiations or sanctions or tariffs or whatever it might be to make the changes that are necessary in our economy. So, you know, this argument about, well, isn't this slightly less bad, you know, something that we should be supporting? What kind of ambition is that? What kind of vision is that?
A realistic one, Ben.
It's not a realistic. It's not based on science.
Okay, I have a question now for you, Ezra. As I was reading this book,